Hey guys, Speedo here. I wanted to do a quick little video on how to use the dynamic mission template so you guys can kind of create your own little mini missions without the knowledge needed or the knowledge for the mission editor that you would need to kind of get more in depth. So everything is kind of already laid out. We have our blue aircraft already laid out. We have our support aircraft in place. The red air and red IADs, they're already set. And we can adjust this to suit our needs based on what we want to do or what we want our mission to do. And it's pretty simplistic once you've done it a couple of times, and hopefully this will further simplify the process so you guys have less questions. And if you do, they are answered in this video. So we're going to start by figuring out what we're going to do for a mission, right? So we load into the mission template. We can look here. We can go in, show hidden units. We can filter all units, and we can say, okay, I want to attack Bandar Langi. So I've already placed the MiG-29s down as our targets. That's going to be our main primary target that we're going to attack. We've also got a hidden SA-6 that we can tell is hidden on map, hidden on planner. Then we got an EWR station with some SA-15s as well. So just real quick, talking about how the dynamic mission kind of works. So there's an IAD script that runs that will control and create a network for the IAD. So uh, any of the EW stations are defined by a prefix, which is REW. And then there's our SAM systems, which are defined by an prefix RSAM. So red SAM, red AW. So the thing I can't do is I can't delete these. I can move them if I don't want to use them. If I want to move the mission further inland and get these guys to be a non-factor, I can take them and I can move them all the way up here into the corner of the map. Um, but unless you start messing with the script, then you don't want to start deleting these guys. You want to kind of leave them in place on the mission. Just shift them around to suit your needs. Same thing with these SAMs. You don't want to be moving them around as well. Uh, so if I'm able to, as a mission, proceed, if I'm able to destroy this EW, it will blind this area that he covers, and it will force another SAM system or EW station that might be dark to turn on and fill that void and act as an EW station. And these guys are programmed or scripted to behave intelligently so that if you attack, if you fire harm at any EW station, and he can have a probability of whatever amount to detect that harm inbound, he will turn off his emitter so that you are not able to have a less probability of kill for that harm. Same thing for the SA6s, unless there is a defined point defense unit like these SA-15s in the script are defined as point defense for this EW station. So they will turn on regardless of their own survival and engage threat aircraft to the EW station in order to try to preserve and safeguard it from being destroyed. Um, and that is the only instance where you'll see them turn on, other than to fill a gap in the network. They also have signed power sources and connections. So for the EWs, if you are able to destroy this connection, then it will go dark as far as it'll go autonomous. So it won't contribute to the rest of the network. And if you're able to kill the power source, then it will no longer be powered. So it will, effectively be dead. Um, and that is that. So then we can also look at our templates for our red squadrons. So we've got our red F5s, you've got our red MiG-29s, and I can go in here and I can change their skill level. I can change their loadouts to change what they're carrying. I can change their skins, and those are all going to be reflected when they're spawned in at any of their airports that they're assigned to. And we'll talk more about that in the scripting section in the next video. So we want to attack Bandar Langi. We've got our targets that are down. We've got a SAM system. We've got a secondary seed target potentially. So let's define our mission aircraft. So if we go in here, we can narrow down our filter to just blue aircraft, and say we're going to only use Camelot 1 through 4. So I can get rid of everybody else that's in here. This is going to have the whole wing, every aircraft defined. So Camelot 5 and 6, Canyon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mako we're not going to use. We're going to save the mission management guys. The A-10s we don't need. We'll save Shell, save Texaco. Victory we don't need. And Winder we don't need. Okay, and then we got Wizard. So we've narrowed it down to the mission aircraft that we need for this mission. So let's say, for simplicity's sake, that Camelot 1 is our cap. Camelot 2 is our seed. Camelot 3 is our strike. Say pinpoint strike. And Camelot 4 is going to be an escort. These guys are going to work fairly closely together, so we'll keep them kind of close to make sure it's easy to identify. Okay, so our cap guys, this will be their rendezvous point. If they get separated, where they're gonna hold and do their CB rendezvous. Then we've got our fence-in point, and that's occurring just before they get to the red border zone. So anything that crosses this trigger zone, it's actually a uncontrolled or late activated helicopter. This is going to define where the red will engage from. So want it when we're placing it, or we can move it around if we want to, move it further inland if we want, but we want to make sure we have enough time for it to dispatch aircraft. So it has to meet two different conditions. So the EW station has to have line of sight, so that's important when you're placing and moving your EW stations. Has to have line of sight, and they have to cross the border zone. So if they cross the border zone, EW has line of sight, they will start to dispatch an aircraft to intercept based off of your current path and trajectory and things along that in that nature. So fence in just before they cross in, and then they will cap, let's say, the distance from target to Quiche, where I know one of the squadrons is based, is 46 miles, and then 59 miles to Keshem, second squadron is based. So we'll say that the likelihood, we'll keep them outside of the engagement zone of the SAMs. The likelihood is that they're going to come from Quiche Island to intercept, and we're going to put a hot leg and a cold leg. So the hot leg is towards the known threat and probable threat, and the cold leg is away. So hopefully we get 4 aircraft. We can have two aircraft on hot, 2 aircraft on cold at any given time. And we can define their altitude in case we export this for knee boards into combat flight. And we're going to define this as cap alpha and spell cap alpha. And then they're going to head back to the tanker, get gas if they need to, and then they're going to land. And then we'll add a second or a final waypoint, which will be their bullseye. Since their bullseye isn't along their route, we could potentially move the bullseye here, but not everybody's going to travel that route. So we just make it our last waypoint. Make sure it's over the bullseye, and then we'll rename this bullseye. And it'll change our landing waypoint, which is fine, as long as our guys know that that's going to be where we're going to land. And we can define that if we need to. Okay, and then we move on to our seed. So our seed is going to attack the SA-6 and the EW site. So they'll fence in. They'll have a initial point outside of the threat ring, and they're going to probably employ harms at a minimum. So we'll say give them about a 10-mile run in towards the target, depending upon what kind of attack they're going to use. We'll add that as a hold point in case they need to recuperate or regroup. And then give them a general area where the SAMs are located. And actually, instead of making them exit right away, we're going to have them hold in case anything presents itself that they need to re-engage. Okay, they exit. Land. And bullseye. Okay, and then we've got our pinpoint strike. And they're going to enter into the target area, fence in. They're going to hold, but they're going to hold while they wait for seed to clear the airspace. Okay, and then we want them. Say we're going to use some JDAMs. So given an IP, they're going to need a relatively straight run in at the target. So we want them to employ from 25,000. We'll say 0.8 Mach, and then we're going to be nice and give them some hard target points. So this we need to adjust to, we'll adjust it to 0, and it's automatically going to define ground level underneath the waypoint. Same thing here. Okay, so we defined our targets so they can use some precision munitions, and then they will head out. Exit. Anchor. Land. And bullseye. And then our final is our escort. So they're going to work relatively closely with the strikers. And we're going to have them offset themselves a little bit and provide a little bit of cap towards Keshem just in case something presents itself from Keshem that we need to focus on. back to the tanker, land, and bullseye. Okay, then we just come back here, we'll do a little cleanup. So we got our fence in, fence out. We didn't define a exit point for these guys. So what we can do is we can go to edit, add a waypoint. So we'll go to the waypoint before the one we want to add. This can be an exit point. Kind of gives them an idea that they're kind of clear. Could also do fence out. Same concept. There's our pinpoint and our escort entering together. Same here, we sync back up again after they hit the target. Okay, our seed is our strikers here. We've got our seed here. We can check our distances. Generally, you probably get about 8 miles or so out of JDAM, so of downrange travel. So we'll give them a little bit extra space to line up, turn in towards the target. We'll give them a little bit of an offset so that they can have some instead of coming straight down the pipe, the target in case something does launch at them, they kind of pick it up in their peripheral. Then we've got our seed already set up. They're going to hold after they hit the target. We're going to probably deconflict a little bit with the striker's flight path. They come back, and that's pretty good. Okay, looking good. So our mission flight plan is already done. Now, if we wanted to, when it comes to the uh, tankers, the tankers are kind of defined to have a certain amount of gas that they can give. So it's not a hard number. They won't stop, but it's by practice probably a good rule of thumb to not take more than you need. So for the Arcos, they're always going to be S3 aircraft, and they're assigned to the carrier. And they're always gonna we're always gonna try to follow a general rule that we only take 500 pounds or less if we can, um, just as an emergency. So the Texcos are always going to be assigned to KC-135 with a Drogan basket for the F-14s and the F-18s, and other aircraft that have a probe. And then Shell is always going to be assigned to the KC-135 or KC-10 with a boom, like the F-16s, A-10s, things like that. So those bigger aircraft can offload a little bit more gas because they can refuel more, they have more gas, they have bigger tanks. So if you needed to change your ATO, then you could go in here and you can move this Texco 1 a little bit closer. Make sure that they have the opportunity when they're coming back to hit him up, instead of going directly to the tanker, and you can change your waypoints to reflect it. And then you could keep Arco as kind of a emergency tanker if needed, and then they could also get gas on the way out if they needed to. I just need to make sure that they coordinate their timing to make sure that people are still on time for their routes and things like that, so that your strikers don't launch an attack before they are supposed to. So we've defined that. We've defined the mission, the flight plan. We've moved around our tankers if needed. We can come in here and we can mess with our mission. So, say for instance, our situation is that the IAF aircraft have been pre-positioned at Bandar Lane in order to reinforce Iranian regime's ability to project air power in the Persian Gulf. Our mission is to deploy and conduct airstrikes against IAF military aircraft at Bandar Langhi Air Base and any other targets of opportunity. And then our execution will be to attack MiG-29s on ramp at Bandar Langhi to degrade the enemy's warfighting ability. Steed will engage possible SA-6 at the airfield and other targets of opportunity, to include the EWR if we want to include that. And then Cap will maintain air superiority over the target area, and then we kind of define some ROE here. Um, any declared any declared bandit bogey aircraft with hotter flanking aspect to cap fighters are defined as hostile. And then we get into our C2, which is our ATO, covering our AWACS channels and frequencies, our tankers, our carrier frequencies, and things in that along those lines. And then we could also mess with our weather, change our weather up if we wanted to. We just need to make sure that if we move the carrier around, that we're adjusting the weather to come down the angle at the right speed and the right angle. So um, right now the wind is set to come from the west at 270 and it's traveling to the east. So the carrier is traveling west with the wind coming directly down the deck. We need to make sure that we take that into account. And then your guys that are combined arms owners, they can modify that as well if they need to, if the wind is off and the carrier's got a crosswind or anything like that. And that pretty much sums it up. For the next video, we'll talk about the scripting and how we can modify the scripting to kind of suit our needs, what we need to do, and change if we want to move airfields for the red air, change their strengths, things like that, and kind of redefine the mission in that respect. But hopefully that gets you guys started at a very basic level on how to use the dynamic mission script and get in there, get your feet wet, learn how to do it, and I promise you, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And don't be afraid to ask questions. There's lots of knowledgeable people outside of myself that are more than willing to help if you've got any questions. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this, and be sure to hit me up if you do have any questions. Take care.